Hi, I'm Dr. J. Franklin Schultz, here to spend a few minutes with you to talk about your rights if you are a victim of crime. During our visit, you'll learn a little about the history of victim rights, what those rights are in Colorado, and how you can find out more information about the Victims' Rights Amendment. If you are the victim of a crime, the actual offense is against the state, not against the individual. It certainly seems like you're a victim, but in the criminal justice system, the crime is against the peace and dignity of all of the people and the laws that they have passed in our democratic process. That's why if John Doe the citizen is robbed, the case is called out in court not as John Doe versus the robber, it's the people versus the robber. If John Doe wanted to be repaid for the damage that the robber did, that citizen would then have to sue in the other of our justice system, the civil courts. A famous example of this is the O.J. Simpson case. Simpson was tried for murder and found not guilty in a criminal court, but he was then sued in civil court by the murder victims' families, and he was found liable for the murder and ordered to pay the survivors. But because it takes money to sue, and because criminal defendants often fail to repay or are not able to repay what they've damaged, crime victims were often left to suffer all of the damage of a crime, even if the wrongdoer was found guilty in criminal court. In addition to having to fight in court for compensation, crime victims in the past were not considered a party to the criminal case and often had no clue about what was happening with the alleged offender. Cases could be dismissed or plea bargained without the victim's knowledge. The victim might not even know if their offender was found guilty or sent to prison or released or even escaped. The victims' rights movement of the late 1980s and 1990s came after courts in the 1960s and 70s afforded more and more rights to criminal defendants under the Constitution, but no additional rights for crime victims. As a result of the victims' rights movement, crime victims no longer have to file their own lawsuits in order to receive compensation. They do not give up that right to sue, but some help is now available to victims in the criminal justice process. Colorado voters passed an amendment to the state constitution in 1992. In 1993, additional laws were passed to help complete the picture for Colorado crime victims, and the law continues to be revised and improved. The Victims' Rights Amendment, which I'll often refer to as the VRA, specifically states that crime victims have a right to know what is going on with their cases. They have the right to be heard regarding how they feel about how the case is proceeding. They have a right to be informed about how the case is progressing, and they have a right to be present during all critical stages of the criminal justice process. Not all crimes are covered under the VRA. Crimes that are handled by municipal courts are not covered, although cities may have their own policies on victims' rights. And the Colorado VRA does not cover crimes that get prosecuted in federal courts, even if that federal crime occurs inside the state of Colorado. However, victims of federal crimes have similar rights as those provided by the VRA. Eligibility for VRA rights and compensation require that victims not be a party to the crime, that they fully cooperate with law enforcement in investigating the crime, and that they remain available to the courts by providing current contact information. Victim compensation may not be the main way that victims recover financially from a crime if there is insurance or other restitution available. Let me also mention here that a witness to a crime, whether defined as a victim or not, has the right to be free from intimidation and may be eligible for witness protection. I won't list each of the crimes specified under the VRA, but in general, if the crime is a violent crime against a person, if there is injury or death, including some traffic crashes, if it's a sex crime, a crime against a child, a crime against an at-risk person or member of protected class, or anything that relates to a domestic violence-related charge, as well as stalking and burglary, then you should ask the district attorney's office or law enforcement if that specific incident may be covered by the VRA. At all times and at all stages, the VRA mandates that crime victims be treated with respect and be allowed to contact officials about their case and their rights. If a crime victim feels that they are not being afforded the rights under the law, they can contact the local district attorney. If they cannot resolve their complaints locally, the Colorado Department of Public Safety has a VRA specialist who can address your concerns. Your first contact as a crime victim may be with law enforcement. It is their responsibility to provide you with VRA and victim compensation information, including how to obtain a protection order from the court, how to get a free copy of the police report, and they must also update you on whether a suspect is in custody, the status of the case, how to get property returned, and update victims on cold cases on request. Your law enforcement may provide you with a pamphlet outlining those rights, or they may call a victim advocate to visit with you immediately on the scene. An advocate may be a law enforcement employee or a volunteer, or may work with the district attorney's office. Victim advocates can help you with any issue related to a crime or crisis. They can provide immediate support and referral to other helping agencies. Whether you need a safe place to go, mental health assistance, medical care, or other need, an advocate can help explain the criminal justice process, including how to get property back that was recovered or seized for evidence, and may be present with you during difficult stages, including the police investigation and court hearings. All of these are things that can be distressing and traumatic, so having a victim advocate on your side can be very helpful. At some point in the investigation, the district attorney's office may take the main responsibility for the case. The district attorney is required to notify crime victims about the filing of charges, court proceedings, ways to be protected from the offender, and of the right to tell your story about how the crime has impacted your life. Finally, if the offender is sentenced to the Department of Corrections, Community Corrections, or the Division of Youth Corrections, these correctional institutions are required to honor victims' requests for confidentiality and to notify the victim of any change in the offender's status or location. Probation and parole departments share these responsibilities as well. Please remember that some of these rights require the crime victim to make requests in writing for certain notifications and to keep their contact information current. This has been just a brief overview of the VRA. For details about the law or how it might apply in your particular case, contact your local law enforcement agency or your district attorney's office.